So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Just going to wait for 2 minutes before starting. I see lots of people are still joining. Can anyone confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you very much.
Good. Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me as well?
Yes, we are too.
Amazing.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
yeah, we'll just wait a little bit more.
All right. I think that we're going to roll, and if people join a little bit later, that's fine. Just before we start, a little bit of logistics for the call. Myself, Alex Busetta, and Nicolas Hudon are going to be presenting today. Presentation is going to be around 40 to 45 minutes or so, and then we'll leave some room for questions. We don't have a hard stop at 11 a.m., so we'll be able to take more questions if any. For questions, you can when it is time, you can go in two ways. You can either use the chat function or just unmute and ask your questions. We're going to ask you to wait until the end of the presentation for questions to make sure that the flow is maintained. First, brief presentations first. So I'm Alex Busetta. So I'm a partner in Abacus team, consulting firm, very boutique, I would say, consulting firm, doing consulting in Lean Six Sigma, operational excellence, and as I guess you can guess from this presentation as well, in terms of environment improvement in offices and our organizations. I'm also the program leader for Lean Six Sigma and quality management at McGill University. And joining us today also is Nicholas. Nicholas, would you like to present yourself?
Yeah, of course. Good morning, everyone. So as Alex said, my name is Nicholas. I am a consultant as well for Abacus team. I work with Alex at McGill and with various clients. I have a lot more experience in the industrial part of engineering, and I'm currently finishing my bachelor degree in mechanical engineering. And I am as well finishing my black belt certification in Lean Six Sigma. I organized various events. Some of you on this call were part of the event that we organized at Green Belt, and that is just part of many projects ongoing.
All right, excellent, excellent. So let's start. So the for the agenda for today, we would like to discuss about what is, of course, Eco Lean Sigma, and going to go through some explaining a few things, but as well as giving you some hands-on tools. So after this webinar, you would be able to use and have the privilege to use some of the tools in your situations as you wish. So some of the key takeaways from today. So we can look at, first of all, how can we, as call it quality management professionals, operational excellence professionals, or business professionals, how can we help our businesses reach its objectives in terms of environmental management? We tend to think that environmental objectives are completely disconnected from any kind of product development objectives, business growth, or profitability objectives, and we will connect the dots over here. We'll look also at how we can integrate the environmental dimension in the overall image or the overall picture of quality planning and improvement planning in a way that is logical, but also compelling to use. So should not be a burden, should not be something on top of what we do. We will also establish a bridge between reducing variation and the 8 wastes, and we will explain variation and waste, of course, and environmental impacts. What is the relationship? Finally, there will be a parenthesis on AI, or if you prefer, artificial intelligence and machine learning, to see how does it really connect with the rest. AI, machine learning are buzzwords today, and we tend to use them all the time. And we would like to put some context in terms of when we should really be using those. The agenda overall, so we'll look at a few numbers to start. We'll explain the 8 ways and how they connect. Linking environmental inequality planning, we'll discuss about ISO as well for people that are familiar with ISO, and environment in the Lean Six Sigma. So how to connect it with the Lean Six Sigma methodology, and we will do a recap on what is the methodology, and then finishing with overall AI. So I'll leave now the mic to Nicholas to discuss about the numbers and to see from where do we start.
All right, thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, so we're gonna start with just setting the tone a bit and seeing how do we compare as Canadians, Americans, for most of the people on this call, and against the rest of the world. Are we the best? Are we actually ahead of the curve? And we'll see that actually set a really good foundation. So in this slide, you can see our average Joe. Our average Joe at the end of a year, many actions that he takes are gonna pile up. And this is just to put it in perspective that the average Joe, based on benchmark and statistic data that we have, consumes about 500 cups of coffee per year, produces about 9 pounds of solid waste, and uses about 3,921 miles of transportation per year. All these things, at the end of the day, add up very well and very fast. So if someone, for example, would be to drink all these 500 cups of coffee in a reusable mug versus using the classic Tim Hortons or McDonald's cup. And I think the more staggering one is the use of a minimum 156 plastic water bottle per year. This is a very big number, but this is just to set the tone. So we're gonna go to the next one and talk about more. Yeah, that's a nice animation. We're gonna talk about more worldwide and what's happening right now. So from what we see is that 60% of the plastic that we produce today ends in a landfill and is not recycled. So there's a major problem there. Plastic is something that we can reuse and we can manage this waste much better. And there's an estimated around 50 million tons of plastic that ends in the ocean currently, which is projected to go to at least 150 million over the coming decade, which is horrible when you look at it. And this ends up creating stuff like the garbage island that is the size of like Texas right now, just floating in our ocean, and is 100% our fault as we didn't manage this waste correctly.
Yeah. Oh, just a quick question. If anyone would like to go on mute, this picture here is from which movie? anyone
I'm sure
guess?
someone can find out. Someone's like typing right now, super fast, trying to get it. Yeah, Blade Runner. 100% at the exam at the end.
Excellent, yeah.
All right, so we'll
All
go to the
right.
next slide and be able to actually put ourselves in perspective in terms of energy consumption. We have this tendency in Canada to think that since most of our energy comes from hydro in some part, and that we, with our way of living, are ahead and we're doing much more better than some other countries. But when we actually put it in perspective, in Canada, we're the fourth worst in terms of energy use. So our energy might be a little cleaner, but we're still using 5.1 times the world average energy per capita. So, and we're a lot worse than the US when it comes to that. So we use a lot of energy and we don't really look back on it, on our use, and on some that might go to waste just because of how accessible and how somehow clean it is for us in Canada. The impact of this in the US is a lot bigger since a lot of it is on nuclear and coal, but it's still like we live in this bubble where we think we're much better, but when we compare, we're not that great. So if we set a few plastic facts, so that, as you can see, we're just seeing energy, the plastic, and then we're also going to be talking about some more trends. But here, I'll just explain a few ones. There's about 3 billion single-use plastic bags that are used in Canada each year. This is a staggering number, and if this is part of since it is part of that 60% that ends in the landfill, this is an area, an opportunity to improve on. And there's about 1 million plastic bottles that are bought every minute around the world. This, for some people, we might know that there's a problem, but do we really know how bad it is? I'm skeptical about that part. So these are just a few plastic facts. We can look back at it on all of them later on. But for now, we'll move on to the 8 wastes and variations. So in the Lean Six Sigma methodology, which we'll discuss in more details later, it's all about reducing, the first part of Lean Six Sigma is called Lean, and it's all about reducing the wastes. And there's specifically 8 wastes in this methodology, and they are transportation, inventory, motion, defects, overproduction, overprocessing, not this slide, non-utilized talent, and waiting. So in the Lean Six Sigma methodology, when we apply it on a supply chain, for example, all these things are considered. But is this tool used for environmental waste management? Because all of these wastes, once reduced, will end up in a reduction in environmental waste management. But if we're not monitoring it, are we really seeing the change? And are we really getting the most out of it? We'll discuss how to actually grab from these 8 wastes. How could they apply to environmental waste management? First one, which is the most staggering one, is transport. If we reduce transport between, let's say, 2 factories to produce 1 good, we're reducing our environmental impact. But what about defects? By reducing defects on a certain product, you're reducing all the water that was used to make it, all the emissions that were used to make that defect that will end up being reworked. This can apply in so many aspects of the industries, no matter what the industry is. Just an example, inventory. By reducing inventory on your business, you're reducing heating needs, cooling needs, space rental, which makes more optimized building and a lot less energy used for that product, for that building. And one that is very overlooked, which is non-utilized talent. In every single company nowadays, there's someone that cares about the environment, and there's someone that is passionate about reducing our environmental footprint. But wasting that contributors' ideas to solve some issues and to get that input on any problem is a wasted opportunity and is a waste in itself. So this is like the human aspect to it that is very important to keep in mind at all times.
Right, excellent.
The next slide. We'll talk about, I'm just going to let Alex talk about environment in the quality planning.
All right, so now we looked at overall some numbers, how it links with the wastes. And there are a few systems that were designed actually to help us plan and manage quality on a more of a day-to-day basis. One of the most popular ones is what we call ISO 9000. And some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that particular concepts, but just to make it clear for everyone, ISO 9000 is a framework or what we call a quality management system that we can adopt to make sure that we have a minimum set of procedures and best practices to, first of all, monitor what are the customer requirements that you see on the left side. So whatever I'm providing, healthcare services, grocery services, financial services, laptops. So how do I capture my customer requirements? How do I make sure that I manage my resources internally, that we do go through a product realization, that we provide what is needed, and finally that we track customer satisfaction. So ISO 9001 is a framework that is saying, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. So it is a guideline. It is a guideline actually that was established multiple decades ago, and that is followed by multiple organizations. So ISO 9000, when you look at most companies, how they use it today, they say, well, I know ISO 9000 is about managing our products, our services, and the quality and the services, has nothing to do with the environment. And I'd like to show you something that is very, very similar to ISO 9000, which is called ISO 14000, or if you prefer, ISO 14001. And this standard is the environmental management system. And ISO is managed by the ISO organization in Switzerland. And it comes from the same source, comes from the same ground roots. So if we look at the overall component of ISO 14000, it starts with the overall environmental policy. If we referred to ISO 9000, there's also a quality policy. In this case, the policy could really be the same, and of course extending it in terms of adding some environmental features to it. There's a big aspect in terms of overall planning and having the right processes, the right procedures to be able to manage what is going on. And you see in the implementation and operations part, big focus on training, awareness of employees, suppliers, customers in terms of what we need to do and what we need to be controlled, documentation and operations control, making sure that we do document how we should service, how we should deliver, how we should produce in a way that is going to give us the right quality according to ISO 9000, but at the same time, the right level of environmental control. And of course, there's a big phases on emergency response. So when we look at that framework, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on ISO 14000, but it is very similar to ISO 9000 for the ultimate purpose of really integrating both. So I'm an organization. I have a company in Montreal. I've got a company in Moncton. Well, I've got ISO 9000. I can add ISO 14000 to it very easily. The next point of what we will be discussing, and let Nicholas talk about it, is really starting the link. What is Lean Six Sigma, and how does environment connect with the Lean Six Sigma methodology? And some of you on this call might be yellow belts, green belts, or black belts, but we're still, Nicholas, still going to explain the methodology for the ones that are not.
Thank you very much, Alex. So as you might know, as Alex just said, some of you might have a strong background and some of you might not know at all what Lean Six Sigma is, and that's completely fine. In a nutshell, how would I describe Lean Six Sigma? To me, Lean Six Sigma is all about reducing waste and variation in a process. And when you come to term with this, everything can be a process and everything can have steps to end to a result. And to actually see those steps and to check if those steps are good or can they be improved, there's this methodology called the RDMAC. So R for recognize, D for define, M for measure, A for analyze, I for improve, and C for control. And each of these phases, they all have tools that could be used and that were used in Japan when it started with Motorola and Toyota. But can these things be applied to environmental waste management? And can they bring value added to any process in this field? If now you can see on the screen, there's a few tools that are that appear, and just such as a process mapping the process that you're seeing, and being able to, just like we do in the green belt, see value added on a product or non-value added. Are these non-value added really essential? And do they create more waste? Are we actually just doing a step without actually needing to do that step? So all these things can be considered in environmental waste management, such as in Analyze, you have a Pareto chart to be able to see the trend on where this is going. And in the improve phase, there's a decision matrix, seeing the benefit versus the effort of doing a project in your business. Is installing a recycle bin really that much effort versus all the benefits that it can bring? Maybe not. Is installing solar panels all over your business a lot of effort? Yes, it's a lot of effort, could bring a lot of benefit, but this is more of a long-term project. So all these Lean Six Sigma tools for you to be able to assess what kind of projects do you want to do and how do you want to do and go around this project to implement environmental waste management are very useful. So we're going to move on to the next slide to discuss one of the tools that is used in the recognize phase. Can anybody tell me what the acronym of this tool is? For sure, I've got some green belts in this call that I hope they know what the acronym is.
It's
pretty
SWOT.
straightforward.
SWOT.
Here you go.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So the SWOT tool is used to see what are our strengths in our business, what are our weaknesses, what are our threats, and what are our opportunities. And when you do this for a process, you could do this for an environmental aspect to it as well. Do we, our strengths, we have environment in this case here. We do have environmental objectives and emergency response, but we don't really have incident reports, chemical handling. These are a weakness, recycling and reuse. So these weaknesses could become opportunities. Product disposal, solid and universal waste management, circular economy practices that we're going to discuss later. So all these weaknesses that you're able to establish with a brainstorm SWOT aspect to it could lead to some new projects in environmental waste management in your business, in your workplace. And yeah, it's also very important to establish the threats that could come with this whole project. Okay. In the measure and analyze phase, we created something called the office model. We also did one for a more industrial model. But this is what basically is. It's an Excel sheet that is based on benchmark data that could simply, just by inputting how many employees you have in your business, be able to show you on a year what actually goes to waste. How much paper do we buy that end up in a recycling bin? Because if you come to think about it, if you buy something and it ends in a recycling bin, did you really gain all you could from it? There's a lot of money that goes to waste, and it goes and increases our environmental impact. Same goes with plastic, organics, oil, grease, bulbs, and ballast. Those are a few categories that we decided to benchmark based on Trent University's research. And yeah, so all these things are variables that could be modified, but you could also take it just as is. So this is also a very useful tool to be able to demonstrate to your team or to your director the impact of how you currently stand based on a model like this, and this brings a lot of opportunity for improvement, a lot of money saving, which is a very big appealing aspect for some people, and environmental impact reduction, which is also very appealing to some other people. So this is one of the tools that we came up with.
All right. Thanks, Nicholas. And this, by the way, the presentation will be sent to you. And this is an example of a tool that you can take back and use. You have all the ratios according to that benchmark in terms of costs, dollars, etc. So you could try it out, putting the number of people in your office and finding out how much waste and how much dollars, which is very interesting at the same time. So another tool that we'd like to show you here is what we called the eco stream mapping. And the eco stream mapping was, actually, before I go to the explanation, does anyone recognize what is this tool in the Lean Six Sigma methodology?
It's the visual stream mapping?
Yeah, value stream mapping, yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
Value
Yeah.
stream.
That's close enough. And you're absolutely right. It is made to be. It is made to be very visual, actually. So you're straight to the point for that. So the value stream mapping, as per se, if you look at the top end of the tool, it is an extension of a process map. It shows you step by step what is being done. So receiving material, washing fabric, cutting fabric. So this is the example, obviously, of a clothing manufacturing company. And then you have a lot of different metrics to be able to understand what's going on. CT, that stands for cycle time. So how many minutes does it take per operation? The yield, which is a success rate, as an example. So for the first step takes 5 minutes, and the yield, the success rate is 95%, meaning we have 5% of waste. If we apply the traditional tool, the value stream mapping, so we have the overall lead time, how long it takes in minutes, so over 2,000 minutes. The time that is taking without the waiting, which is only 95 minutes. Maybe 95 minutes I'm doing something, the rest of the time is really waiting. And so the tool itself shows a lot of opportunities, what is going on in that process, which steps are longer, what are the bottlenecks, where do I have the biggest percentage of defects. So it gives us a lot of different aspects. What we added working together with Nicholas were the two next lines. The value stream mapping is really for time, productivity, and scrap. What we decided to add are the lines that you see below that are, first of all, energy. Energy. So if I measure for all those steps, how much electricity in this example am I consuming, then I get a good idea per shirt or per pair of pants or per blouse, how much electricity is being consumed. As well, as the bottom line suggests, you also have the wasted material. So in this case, I can see step one, receiving material. I am scrapping 20%. Washing the fabric, 10%. Cutting the fabric, 20%. So I'm throwing away good material, and the total is, as you see on the right, 57%. So these two metrics give me additional elements that we added to the EcoStream mapping. And from those, what we can do if we wanted to is to then capture the cost per unit, according to the province, either in Canada or the US, and different rates exist. And you see in this example here, if this was electricity, and my cost per kilowatt, for example, is 14 cents. In this case, my total cost of electricity is $147 for each unit that I would produce, which is fabulous information, not only in reducing waste and reducing energy consumption, but also to show my boss, to show my team, to show stakeholders how much am I really saving if we cut down some of that energy. Other tools that you might be familiar with in this case, what is the name of this tool? If anyone knows. It's a, all right. So Jessica, I got it right. And Sandra, thank you very much. It's a Pareto. It's a Pareto that is showing on the left side what are the largest sources either of defects or pain, or in this case, in this example, the largest source of energy consumption. So we see that close assembly is the top one in terms of energy, then fabric cutting, etc. So shows us in perspective, where should we spend our initiatives or focus if we really wanted to make a difference, energy-wise and money-wise. So let's look at some quick examples in terms of what was achieved. And this comes from one of our customers, Keurig Dr. Pepper in Canada. So if you look at that roadmap, using those types of approaches and using targeted improvement initiatives, if you look at the end of 2018, so this was already achieved in Canada. 100% of K-cups are recyclable. And K-cups, you might like K-cups, you might hate K-cups, right? It's but in the grand scheme of things, it can create quite a bad source of plastic waste if it is not being recycled. So as of 2018, everything in Canada is fully recyclable. And at the end of this year, everything is going to be recyclable. Anything that Keurig Dr. Pepper delivers worldwide. Another client of ours, which is the region of Peel, which is the municipalities of Mississauga and Brampton in Canada, very on the west side of Toronto. They've done lots of initiatives in order to reduce energy consumption. And you see some of the examples below. The numbers are not what we'd like to focus on, but for example, changing the lighting system in terms of street lights in order to save energy. Overall voltage optimization, where should we have, when should we have electricity, when we should not have electricity on certain streets. So it starts to go to the concept of sometimes what we refer to as a smart city, where I'm using the energy and having the light of lighting that is needed for the people doing so. We'd like to present also to you the concept of circular economy. The concept of circular economy, if any one of you lived in Europe or has spent some time in working in Europe, this is something that is quite spread nowadays and which is very, not only fashionable, but practical. In terms of North America, it's mostly unknown. Some companies are starting to do it, but it's not very well known. We'd like to show you a video about it. I'm going to start the video and I'm going to ask you if I tested the sound before we started, so everything should be fine. If you cannot hear the video, so just please let me know and we'll I'll restart it accordingly. Sorry for that.
Yeah, and like let us know in the chat if it's if it lags or if it's delayed, because sometimes with the video chat and a screen share, it's not the best, but we'll just write in a chat if you have problems.
All right. Were you hearing the sound?
We can't even see it.
Oh, that's bad. Sorry.
Technology, how much we like it, and sometimes we don't.
No, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to do a different share. Sorry for that.
Here we go.
Do you see the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't hear a sound.
Oh, no sound?
Nope.
Going to restart my share, otherwise I'll just re-explain it. Do you see the image?
No, we don't. But it says that like you're sharing computer screen, but we can't
there's
see.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. If you can give me another minute, otherwise I'll stop. Okay, don't think it's going to work. My apologies for that. So we'll explain. I'll try one more time. Let me know if you hear anything. You see the video?
Yeah. No, we can't hear it.
You can't?
No.
Okay, that's bad. I've got, okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
So we'll go back to the presentation and we'll explain it from here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my apologies for that interruption. So in terms of circular economy, what it is, typically what we tend to do, we buy, we dispose of clothing, light bulbs, we throw it away, we recycle, and sometimes we donate, and that's all what we do. The idea of the circular economy is that instead of buying, we would be renting. You could borrow, you could rent light bulbs, or you buy clothes. And for example, H&M is a store that is doing this. H&M, you're buying clothes. If you give it back to H&M, they would redistribute the clothing, not only recycling, but they would remanufacture or refurbish and resell the clothes, sometimes in the same geography, sometimes in different geographies. And this is something that has been quite successful in Europe. on TVs, smartphones, laptops. So it's not only of giving back a laptop and people repairing the laptop, they actually would improve the product. They would improve the laptop, so then they would resell a laptop on using some of the same component, but with a higher performance. So this could be resold, for example, in Sweden, or it could be resold in Africa, depending on the different type of market. So circular economy, instead of just recycling, we don't think about recycling anymore. The focus is really on reusing and remanufacturing what is being done. So let's go to the next steps and discuss a little bit. And this is actually our last topic, which is about AI and statistical methods. We discussed a little bit about the 8 wastes. We discussed about Lean Six Sigma. What about AI? And as I mentioned before, AI is a very, very trendy word, and we'd like to put it here in perspective. We tend to, as I mentioned, AI is a buzzword, so we tend to jump to AI. But this page, what it is showing you is that before jumping to AI, first of all, we should ask ourselves, are the key process parameters fully known? Do we understand the process? Do we understand why we're spending so much money, so much energy, so many goods in our environment, in our office, in our factory? If it is, and we understand the process, let's fix the process. If we can't, then we would try to go through some statistical modeling. And this is the second bullet. Did we discover what are the key process parameters, and can we model them? So can we use statistics and math and statistics to really understand what's going on? If we can, fantastic. Let's build models such as regressions to be able to fix it. If we can't, in that case, we would go through AI and machine learning. And just go to a quick example before we go to the questions on that one. So this particular one is about the same clothing manufacturer that you've seen before. And we have different numbers here and different steps. So cutting, assembly, drying, knitting. So lots of different steps. And in those different steps, what we tried to do is to use very traditional statistics. And what are those statistics doing is actually looking at, can we get a good regression? A good regression, and you have at the bottom, for people that are familiar with regression analysis, which can be done in Excel, which can be done in Minitab, I can build a model. So my overall energy, in this case, it is about energy, equal what factors, and trying to get a good regression. So what we're trying to do here is to predict what are our power surges. A surge meaning an extreme, a maximum in terms of a power consumption that is going to cost me an arm and a leg in terms of Hydro-Quebec or Hydro-Ontario or any hydro agency in Canada. And what you see at the bottom is that our model is giving us a R square, a regression coefficient of 42%, meaning statistically the model that we obtain is only 42% good, which is not very good. So based on this, we could see that there's a limit in terms of using our statistical methods over here. What we did as a next step, and I'll go to this slide over here, we used some machine learning techniques. And in this case, this was done with Python, using a logistics regression technique with what we call regulation. Regulation is a word in AI which means chaos. So we want to understand chaos. So we're asking our AI brain to add a certain component of chaos and trying to model it. And when you look at the output, And I don't want to spend a lot of time in terms of the technique itself, but the output is giving us 77%. Meaning, here you could argue that 77% is not ideal, but still, in terms of predicting that extreme of energy, our AI model would be able to predict it at 77%, which is much better than what we had in terms of our 42% in terms of statistics. In other words, we used AI in this case because we wanted to go to the next steps because we tried the previous steps and they were not good enough.
Thank you, Alex. I'll just try the video because I think I figured it out. If you let me do it.
Sure.
Oh, I think I can't request. I don't know if you can change my my rights because I can't share my screen.
You are the host.
Oh, perfect. All right. Everybody can see this? Good. Alex, tell me if you can hear the sound.
You lease a car or an apartment.
Yes, yeah.
It's just one idea.
All right, so I'll restart it and then we'll just listen to that one. And Alex, let me know when you want to pause so you can talk.
Here's an idea. What if you never had to buy a light bulb again? Instead, you lease light, like you lease a car or an apartment. It's just one idea that's part of the circular economy. Before we can understand the circular economy, well, it helps to define the linear economy. Most organizations today operate in the linear economy, which is based on a take, make, and dispose model. So, for example, a light bulb company takes resources, like glass or metal, to manufacture its products. The company makes the bulb and sells it to a customer like me who uses it. Once the light bulb burns out, I dispose of it. It's likely neither the company nor I will ever see that light bulb again. For a light bulb company to make money in the linear economy, it tries to buy materials for the lowest cost possible and to sell as many bulbs as possible. This model operates as if there are infinite resources, like glass or metal, in the world. But you and I know that's not the case. That's why the circular economy treats materials like they're finite. A company in the circular economy doesn't just recycle products, but maintains ownership of them all along. So the model looks more like this: make, use, and return. Let's go back to the light bulb example. Instead of buying bulbs, this office in London leases its light from Philips Lighting. It signed a 15-year lease for the service and pays a fee each quarter. Philips still owns the actual light bulbs and provides maintenance and replacements when needed, no extra cost. This model gives Philips the incentive to produce energy-efficient light bulbs, and it saves the office money with fixed lighting costs. It's a radically different business model that makes companies more like service providers than sellers of a physical product. And it turns out lots of companies are looking for ways to get involved. Take H&M, one of the world's largest clothing retailers. It's working on a strategy to become 100% circular. The company collects old garments in its stores and recycles them. Since 2013, H&M says it has gathered more than 55,000 tons of fabric to reuse for new garments. Some governments are getting on board with the circular economy too. The European Union adopted an action plan in 2015 aiming to make supply chains, you guessed it, more circular. This includes everything from production to consumption, repair and manufacturing, and waste management. The point isn't just to become more green and create environmental benefits, there could be economic benefits too. One report estimated a shift toward the circular economy in the EU could increase GDP by an additional 12 percentage points by 2050. But moving from the linear economy to the circular economy also brings costs. Companies would need to redesign their supply chains and products in order for them to be used again and again. Manufacturers might be burdened when it comes to the actual logistics of disposing and recycling. A recent report found only 22% of UK companies are trying to generate value from products that are returned for reuse, recycling, or refurbishing. It's estimated the cost of transitioning to a fully efficient reuse and recycling system across Europe could be as much as 108 billion euros, roughly $130 billion. Cost is one thing. Changing people's mindsets is another. And that's what it'll take for the circular economy to go from an idea to reality for everyone.
fantastic. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Nick, for that.
No problem. I'll give you back the host position. Thank you so much for that brief moment.
All right. So, and you saw it. It's very interesting in terms of the way that it is has been done in Europe. There was an overall consensus of the entire continent to drive a circular economy, and so here what we see in North America so far is much more a few companies doing it on their own, but we don't. There is no overall consensus. There are lots of environmental initiatives around Canada, as for example, but there's no unison. There's no one orchestral organization that is coordinating so far. So I would say the most well-known example around is H&M for us. So do you see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a few takeaways, and we'll go to the questions. So what we wanted to do today was really for you to understand what you can do in terms of changing what is happening in your organizations as influencers, as leaders. Don't need to be a manager to things around. You can influence, you can give ideas. We wanted to also explain how that entire dimension fits with some other things that you might have heard of, ISO 9000, ISO 14000, and creating bridges. So the bridges were between the 8 wastes. We've shown you quite a few tools, SWOT analysis, Pareto's, eco stream mapping, that other version of value stream mapping, to start to get you thinking about how you can make a practical use about those concepts. Also, we discussed briefly what were some of the advantages of AI in that scheme. If you'd like to have more information about it, as I mentioned, first of all, we're going to send you the presentation. You do have some information on our website. There is also a full-fledged course that we will be giving in collaboration with McGill University. First time that we're going to give it is going to be in the month of June. So that being said, I'd like to open up the room for any question that you might, or comment that you might have. So
And
feel free.
I'll start the show with just, I wanted to tell you, everyone, thank you for connecting as well. And just like Alex said, any tools is as good as the person using it. And today we just wanted to show you the power of some tools that you might already possess to be able to push your ideas in your businesses, and how, if you care about the environment and you're in a culture that doesn't really, how are you able to put your ideas forward using some tools and being able to show data, even though it's very hard to come up with some data in this field, because not everybody monitors everything that comes in and out of a business. But being able to either put stuff in place to do so, or to benchmark yourself on other businesses, this is how you're going to be able to actually move forward with those projects and use the tools that you might already possess to be able to be an influential person in your field. That being said, thank you again, and you can have an open discussion or just questions and here and there.
So any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question
as well.
I have a question for the HLM process, because I want to know how are they making the clothes refurbishing after recycling it? Do they transport the clothes to and manufacturing to refurbish it, or they just by example modify a little bit?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. They're doing two things. First of all, what they do, they do some modifications. So of course, there is a certain, call it a cleaning, disinfection of the clothes that are returned, and they do apply some modification on some of the clothes to either enhance or repair or add some pockets. What though is happening in North America is typically we do not like to buy second-hand clothing, even if they were improved or sanitized. We don't like to do that. So what is happening with those clothing? They would go to a secondary market where those clothings would be then sold. What they do mostly in North America is using the fibers. So they would take the clothes and work with the suppliers. So H&M does not own the manufacturing. Not like if you look at Zara, Zara is an example. Zara controls their entire supply chain. H&M does not. So they get the fiber and work with their suppliers in order to regenerate clothing based on the same type of fibers. So it's not really recycling because I'm not recycling. I'm using the fiber without destroying it.
Oh. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you know about like jeans and how they're made, like it takes so much water to be able to get that product. So to be able to recycle that fiber is a huge win on the environment.
Other questions?
Question,
I have
comments,
another question.
insults.
Sure.
It's for the, I don't know the word in English, but I think it's decision mattress. Mattress. It's for like making the criteria that you want to get. Yeah, it's on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and you know what? If you prefer to ask your question in French, we can also translate.
OK. Ouais, parfait. Donc, en fait, le poids là, qu'on voit, en fait, c'est marqué en haut rate. Est-ce qu'on est mieux de le mettre en fait dans une colonne à droite pour dire c'est quoi le poids de chacun des critères pour comme mieux. OK, non, je le vois, il est en haut là. OK, cool.
Oui. Puis, there could be different. The question was about more this matrix here. This is not absolutely the best practice. This is one type of matrix, but
Okay.
You can have the weights could be on the left, could be on the right. Your criteria could be here. So it could be a different scenario. This is just to go show you an example of a decision matrix. Yeah.
The important is the correlation on the criteria and on what we get for this like process or this product that give it
exactly
for us. Okay.
Exactly. For example, in his care, it's water sampling process review. This correlates, has a 3 with safety, a 3 with meeting the budget, etc. And then I multiply by the weights.
All right. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Other questions? All right. So thank you very much for your time, and it was a pleasure to have you on the call. We'll send the presentation shortly, and please reach out to us if there's anything else. And have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oui, Nick?
Bon, si j'attendais qu'ils se partent.
Non, ouais. Ok, non, c'est bon. Il y en a que j'ai juste fait un remove.
Ok, ouais, non, c'est ça.
Ouais, c'est vrai, je vais arrêter le. Je
Ouais, arrête le recording.